Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of It's Giving Care. I'm Marissa, a millennial mom times 4 with 2 of our youngest children being medically complex and special needs. On this podcast, we talk about all things caregiving, medical parenting, and today I am really looking forward to this episode. What I plan to talk about, care coordination, is one of the things that really inspired me to even want to start a podcast to share all of the things that I have been learning over these past few years. So this is going to be the first of a 2-part series. Next week, you'll want to tune in because I'll be talking about coordination with medical providers, with nurses and agencies, with pharmacies, in the hospital setting, in the doctor's office setting. So make sure you tune in. But today I am going to be talking about all of the other coordination. So making calls, scheduling appointments, all of the day-to-day logistics that are necessary as you are caregiving. So with that, let's jump in. So from a care coordination standpoint, the way that I like to think about this is all of the things that you have to take care of for your loved one, their affairs, their needs, their day-to-day supplies that they might need to help care for their overall well-being. Caregiving takes on many different forms. In my case, I'm a working caregiver, so what I do during the day is typically spending a lot of my time on a lot of these coordination efforts, and then at night and on the weekends, I'm doing more of that direct care. But what I found in care coordination, there's so much trial and error, trying to figure out what's the best way to get all of the things that have to get done, learning from mistakes or things that you might have missed. So my very first tip is, and this is my cardinal rule, I would say, never try to rely on your memory to do something. I have been a victim of this, guilty of this so much. You can't, when you have so much on your plate, you can't rely on remembering to do something. So that means it's really important that if you got to get something done, that you're making notes about it. I am a big proponent of making lists. And so I have a zillion lists for all different types of things. The tool that I love to use for my list is Google Tasks. So with Google Tasks, you're able to have separate lists for all different topics. And what I do is, between having to keep track of everything I need for my daughters, for my father, their needs, our grocery lists in 2 different households, I maintain different lists. And I'm constantly putting things down that I have to make sure that I get or do so that I don't miss anything. The next thing is planning for all the calls that I have to make. A big part of my day is making calls. I make many calls a day between doctors, checking in with the aides that are caring for my dad back home, talking to the pharmacy, whomever. Checking in on some of our government benefit applications. I'm always having to make calls, but what I like to do is schedule out the calls that I need to make for a particular day before the day starts, typically before those offices open, so that I have a game plan for how I'm going to fit in my calls with all the other meetings and stuff that I have for work. So very important to make sure that you're planful about these things so that the day doesn't get away and you forget to do something. I even have taken it a step further, where if there's a call that is really critical, I'll set an alarm on my phone to remind me to make that call, because if I forget, again, the memory, if I forget, then it could be a problem. So I set those reminders. Anything to take the added weight of responsibility off of my mind and set up a system is really what I'm leaning into these days. The next thing I tell people all the time, and this episode is really intended probably more so for newer caregivers or those that are just trying to find ways to improve in your process. One of my top tips also is make sure you have a printer, and a printer that has a scanner. I can't tell you how many trees that I have killed, unfortunately, with printing out paperwork for applications and for forms that are needed. And I can't imagine how I would do that if every time I had to print something or scan something, I had to run to Staples. So make sure you have a printer. If you don't have one, I would suggest investing in one. It will definitely save you a lot of headache in the long run. I also use family calendars. So I have found, again, through trial and error, that we have to maintain a joint calendar for my family, because otherwise we would continue to be missing things or overbooking ourselves. So for my family, my immediate family, we use Google Calendars, and there we put everything. We put all the doctor's appointments, all of the sports activities, any kind of jobs that my husband is taking, any leisure activities, any commitments on the parents' part. Everything that is going to have an impact on anyone's time in my household goes into the calendar. And if it's not on the calendar, then typically that means we're not going to be able to follow through on whatever that commitment is, because we would have likely overbooked ourselves with something else. So we use the Google Calendar. It took us a while to get adjusted to it, but now my husband is very good about using it, and myself as well. And it's been a game changer for us in making sure that we keep up with everything. For my dad, I use a calendar called Cozy. It's COZI. And with Cozy, I decided to do a separate calendar for his needs because I didn't want to commingle it with my Google Calendar for my family. There's already a lot of stuff there. So I established Cozy, and I have that as a shared calendar with my brother and with our aid team. And there I put all of my dad's doctor appointments and other things that are upcoming. And that's been really helpful to keep organization there. I did end up paying for a premium membership because I just found the free version wasn't sufficient. But it was like maybe $30 or $40 for the year, so not a big deal. But that's been very helpful to keep up with those appointments. So as you can hear, I'm managing 2 separate family calendars, but it's necessary in the role that I'm in. The next thing is, this is, if you came in my house and you saw behind the curtain of what we've really got going on, paper organization is probably my area where I struggle the most. But I am working to improve on that. And so what I've been doing, I have these accordion folders that I use. I've got a good process in place for my dad where we have a folder that they take to every one of his appointments. And so I'm working to get better at that with my daughters and all of their needs as well. But you've got to keep up with the paper to be able to maintain your care coordination responsibilities, because between things that come in the mail and other doctor appointment and doctor visit printouts and discharge paperwork, keeping track of all of that stuff is so critical to just having a organized means of keeping all of your information. The other thing that I do is keeping notes on my phone. And I used to have the habit of just creating new notes over and over again and literally ended up with hundreds and hundreds of notes. I've now more recently started creating folders to better organize my notes, and I have found that that has been more helpful. I used to use Evernote for my note organization, but they made some changes to their tool and I didn't find that it was a good fit anymore. So now I've really been just leaning into Apple Notes, and that has been great to keep up with all of the discussions that I'm having. I find that instead, and this is my personal preference, you might be better off with using notebooks, but I find that I have a much better way of recalling information, prior discussions, if I take notes in my phone. And I'm just getting better at how I organize that. So I definitely encourage you all to make sure that you're keeping notes, notating importantly who you spoke to, what they committed to do, what the follow-up is going to be, how you'll need to ensure that the things that are someone else is doing on behalf of your loved one or as their role in the care coordination, making sure those things get done. Because the care coordination role is not just about the things that you directly have to do as a caregiver, but it's also about how you need to work through others, how you need to make sure that others are doing the things that they're responsible for. I also more recently have had to lean very, very heavily on virtual ordering. So I've been using Amazon Prime for a long time, and that's a staple. We have packages that come to my house every day, that go to my dad's house every day. So I'm always using Amazon Prime, but I have found with being at a distance and needing to keep up with my father's needs that Walmart Plus has also been a game changer. So I'm able to easily order my dad's groceries, his care needs, a lot of those things directly from Walmart. And most of the time I'm, fitting in a zillion things every day. And so a lot of times I do the order the same day and within a few hours it's delivered. And so that has been extremely helpful. I highly encourage anyone that is not doing orders for themselves. For my family, we do Walmart pickup because I don't want to spend a zillion hours in the store. So I do that for my personal household, but for my dad, we do Walmart delivery through Walmart Plus. Highly encourage, if you're still going to the store for every little thing you need and not trying to streamline that, please get on the bandwagon of making these things simpler for yourself by doing the legwork at home, and then either letting them bring it to you or you going to pick it up. Definitely is a time saver. I at times have used Instacart. I'm not as much of a fan of them because I do find that they charge different prices for things through their app versus in the store, but that's also an option. Really every store these days, even Aldi has a pickup service, I think, through Instacart or delivery service. So these stores are realizing that people with a lot of responsibilities and busy lives need that. So I can only imagine for those of us that are caregivers, how much more we have on our plates and the benefit of being able to utilize tools like this. Lastly, and this is not necessarily a tip for a tool to use, but it's very important as you're managing the care coordination role that you're reflective of how things are going. How can you improve? I'm always thinking about how could I have handled that situation better? Is there something that I could have done that would have made it more efficient? Or, there are times where I get off the phone with someone and I forget an important point. And so I'm always thinking about how can I get better at this to make it easier for myself. So maybe selfish, but I'm trying to make it easier on me because homegirl has got a lot on her plate. And so I encourage you to do the same thing, making sure that you are thinking through how you can do these things better, because until you're in a caregiving role, you don't realize how much of the care coordination actually goes into it. I think a lot of people think that caregiving is just the direct care, but it's so much more than that. So you really want to be thinking about how you can make this a more efficient experience for yourself. So just as a reminder, next week we'll be talking more about care coordination directly with providers. I've got a lot to share about that. A lot of the ways that I have learned, some of the experiences that I've had, good and bad, and I look forward to that. So that's all I've got for today, but I look forward to continuing this conversation with you. And make sure that you like, share, subscribe, engage, get in the comments, share some of your care coordination tips, because I'm always, again, looking for ways to improve, and so is the community. So with that, we will touch base next time on It's Giving Care. Peace.